I defended my family for years against my wife. Then I saw the emails they never meant me to read. Now I'm done being their wallet. The email notification popped up on my laptop at 11:23 p.m. on a Thursday night, while my wife Vanessa slept upstairs. I wasn't snooping. Her iCloud had been syncing to our shared computer for 3 years, something she'd set up herself when her phone died and never bothered to disable. I'd seen thousands of her messages before, mostly shopping confirmations and work emails. But this one had my mother's name in the preview. March payment. He suspects nothing. My hands went cold before my brain even processed what I was reading. I clicked it open and felt my entire world tilt sideways. The email chain went back 18 months. 18 months of my mother, my sister Diane, my brother-in-law Russell, and my wife discussing me like I was a financial resource to be managed and manipulated. They had spreadsheets. They had strategies. They had a group chat called Project Gravy Train, where they calculated exactly how much they could extract from me before I'd notice. I sat there staring at the screen, my coffee going cold beside me, reading message after message that detailed every lie they'd told me, every guilt trip they'd manufactured, every crisis they'd invented to keep me writing checks. I'd been the family ATM for 6 years, ever since my software company got acquired, and I walked away with enough money to never work again if I lived modestly. But I didn't live modestly. I lived generously, because that's what family does, right? My mother called crying about property taxes. I paid them. Diane's husband needed surgery not covered by insurance. I covered it. My youngest brother Nathan needed help with his business startup. I invested $53,000. Vanessa's parents needed a new roof after a storm. I handled it. Every few months, someone had an emergency, and I showed up with my checkbook, because that's what my father would have wanted. He died when I was 22, and his last words to me were, "Take care of your mother and sister." So I did. For 16 years, I structured my entire life around that promise. When Vanessa and I started dating 8 years ago, she seemed to understand. She came from a tight-knit family too, spoke beautifully about sacrifice and loyalty. When we got married 5 years ago, she threw herself into helping my family, always the first to suggest I help out when someone called with a problem. I thought I'd married someone who shared my values. I thought I'd found a partner who understood what family meant. The first email in the chain was from my mother to Vanessa, dated October 15th, almost a year and a half ago. "Vow, he's starting to ask questions about the frequency. We need to space things out better. Can you work on him from your end? Make him feel guilty about abandoning family if he hesitates. The Mediterranean cruise isn't going to pay for itself." I had to read it 3 times before the words stopped rearranging themselves in my vision. My mother, who'd raised me to value honesty above all else, who'd grounded me for a week when I was 13 for lying about breaking a neighbor's window, was coaching my wife on how to manipulate me. The Mediterranean cruise was real. She'd gone last April with Diane and 2 of her friends. She'd told me she'd saved for years from her pension, that it was a dream trip she'd worked so hard for. I'd felt proud of her. I'd driven her to the airport and hugged her goodbye and told her to have the time of her life. The cruise cost $11,000. I knew because I'd looked it up afterward, wanting to surprise her with a photo album when she got back. She hadn't saved a dime. The email thread confirmed it. V deposited the $11,000 on the 3rd. He thinks I'm using pension money. Brilliant suggestion about the photo album guilt trip. Make him think I'm such a dedicated mother that I'd rather document memories for him than enjoy the trip. God, he's predictable. My hands started shaking so badly I had to set down the coffee mug before I dropped it. I scrolled further. November. The car thing worked perfectly. He didn't even question the $8,500 for transmission repairs. Russell says the Subaru runs fine. We just pocketed the cash. V, your crying phone call was Oscar-worthy. December. Nathan's business investment cleared. $53,000 in the account. He's going to blow it on that ridiculous food truck idea, but at least we got our cut first. V, the $15,000 transfer should hit your account Friday. January. He's asking about family finances. Thinks we should all be more careful with money. Vow time to plant seeds about him being stingy and forgetting where he came from. Work the dead dad angle. Always works. I felt like I was reading about a stranger. These couldn't be the people I'd loved and supported my entire adult life. But there were the emails, time-stamped and detailed, spelling out every lie in clinical precision. They had a system. Vanessa would accidentally mention someone's struggle. My mother or Diane would call a few days later with the full crisis. I'd offer help. They'd act reluctant, grateful, humble. Then they'd deposit my money and laugh about it in a group chat I didn't even know existed. The medical bills that weren't real. The property tax, emergency, that was actually just quarterly taxes they'd chosen not to save for. The foundation repair that never happened. Nathan's business that was never meant to succeed. They'd warned him not to actually try, just to take the money and split it with them later. My brother, who I'd mentored for years, who I'd believed in when nobody else did, had been in on it from the start. The email from Diane spelled it out. Nathan feels bad sometimes, but V keeps him in line. She reminded him that Aaron's basically a bank that prints money, and banks don't have feelings. He'll get over it. A bank that prints money. That's what they called me. Not son, not brother, not husband. A bank. I scrolled through 43 pages of emails that night. By the time I reached the end, The sun was coming up, and I'd thrown up twice in the kitchen sink. The most recent email was from 3 days ago. March payment schedule. Aaron approved the $6,200 for Mom's dental work, spa weekend in Scottsdale. Diane's car accident is set for next week. V will cry on the phone about how traumatized she is. He'll overnight the insurance deductible without checking if there was actually an accident. Russell thinks we can get another $30,000 out of him before summer if we stage it right. V, good work on the emotional affair scare last month. He was so desperate to prove his commitment, he didn't question the $12,000 for your girls' trip to reconnect with yourself. We're on track for $85,000 this year. Keep him guilty and generous. I sat there as the kitchen filled with morning light, staring at words that couldn't possibly be real, but absolutely were. The emotional affair scare. That was February. Vanessa had come home from work crying, said a co-worker had been flirting with her, that she felt confused and needed space to remember why she married me. She'd suggested a solo trip to find herself, and I'd encouraged it, paid for it, told her to take all the time she needed. She'd gone to a resort in Arizona with my sister. They'd posted photos on Instagram of spa treatments and poolside cocktails. I'd commented heart emojis on every single one, grateful she was taking care of herself. The financial records were attached to another email, an Excel spreadsheet titled Aaron Extractions 2023 to 2024, with color-coded categories: medical, fake; property/home, fake; emergency/crisis, fake; emotional manipulation, gifts/trips I'd funded to prove my love or commitment; and family investment, money I'd given for the family that went straight into their personal accounts. The total for the past 18 months was $162,900. Before that, according to earlier emails I found in archived folders, they'd been doing it smaller scale for 4 years. The grand total was somewhere north of $370,000. I told myself I was misunderstanding, that there had to be context I was missing, that these were taken out of context or sent to the wrong people or some kind of elaborate joke. I went through every rationalization my brain could manufacture while my gut twisted itself into knots. Then I found the video. It was attached to an email from Russell to Vanessa, dated 6 months ago. Thought you'd enjoy this proof of concept. The video showed my mother, Diane, Russell, Nathan, and Vanessa sitting around my mother's dining room table, my childhood dining room table where we'd eaten thousands of family dinners, with drinks and papers spread out in front of them. The audio was clear. My mother was talking. The key is keeping him emotionally dependent. He needs to believe he's the only thing standing between us and disaster. Vanessa, you're doing beautifully with the marriage guilt. Every time he hesitates about money, you question whether he really loves you, whether he's becoming one of those rich people who forget their roots. Works every time. Diane laughed. Remember when he paid for my cancer scare testing? I had a regular checkup. We billed him $8,000 for tests I never took. Nathan, my baby brother who I'd taught to ride a bike, said, I feel like shit sometimes, but then I remember he'd never miss it. He's got millions. What's a few $100,000 between family? Vanessa, my wife, the woman I'd pledged my life to, raised her glass. To Aaron, the most gullible, generous, guilt-ridden cash cow a girl could ask for. May he never learn to check receipts. They all toasted, clinked glasses, laughed. The video was 8 minutes long and I watched it 4 times, each time hoping I'd see something different, some sign that they weren't serious, that this was some kind of dark humor I wasn't understanding. But there was nothing ambiguous about it. They meant every word. In the video, they discussed future plans, faking a crisis with my nephew's college fund, staging a home invasion at my mother's house to claim insurance money I'd reimburse, having Vanessa fake a pregnancy scare to get me to buy a bigger house they could eventually claim half of in a divorce. They had a timeline. They had backup plans. Russell, who worked in finance, had apparently been advising them on how to structure the extractions to avoid triggering any flags with our accountant. Vanessa had been feeding him information about our financial statements, our tax returns, my investment accounts. They knew everything about my finances. I knew nothing about their conspiracy. I closed the laptop at 6:15 a.m. and sat in the dark kitchen trying to remember how to breathe. Vanessa's footsteps sounded on the stairs around 6:30. She walked into the kitchen in her robe, yawning, beautiful and familiar, and absolutely unrecognizable. You're up early, she said, kissing the top of my head like she'd done 1,000 times before. Couldn't sleep, I managed. My voice sounded normal. I don't know how. She poured coffee, chatted about her day, mentioned that my mother had called about something yesterday. Oh, what did she need? I asked. The words tasted like poison. Just wanted to catch up, Vanessa said breezily. You know how she worries when she doesn't hear from you for a few days. She was lying to my face with the same warm smile she'd had on our wedding day. I excused myself and threw up again in the downstairs bathroom. When I came back, Vanessa was concerned. Are you feeling okay? You look pale. The care in her voice was so convincing I almost believed it myself. Almost. Just a stomach bug, I said. I'll be fine. She rubbed my back, suggested I stay home from the gym, offered to make me soup later. Every gesture of love was a calculated performance, and I'd been watching this show for 5 years without realizing it was fiction. I went to my office and locked the door. My hands were steadier now, replaced by something cold and analytical. I'd built a software company from nothing and sold it for $18 million because I knew how to solve problems systematically. This was just another problem. It was just that the variables were people I loved, and the solution would destroy everything I'd believed about my life. First step, verify everything. I wasn't going to blow up my existence based on emails alone, no matter how damning. I called our accountant, Gregory Winters, who'd handled my finances for 9 years. Greg, I need you to pull together every payment I've made to family members for the past 5 years. Every check, every transfer, every bill I've paid on someone's behalf. I need amounts, dates, and stated purposes. There was a pause. That's going to be a long list, Aaron. Is everything all right? Just doing some financial planning, I said. Can you have it by end of day? I'll have my team on it. Should be ready by 5. Next call. My lawyer, David Feinstein, who'd handled the company acquisition and my estate planning. David, hypothetically, if someone had been defrauding me for years with my wife's participation, what would my legal options look like? Another pause, longer this time. That's oddly specific for a hypothetical. Are you okay? Just trying to understand my position, I said. Can you see me today? David cleared his afternoon. I drove to his office in downtown Seattle at 10 a.m., the laptop with the emails in my bag. He read through everything while I sat across from his desk, watching his expression shift from curious to horrified to professionally detached. David was 63 years old, had practiced law for 38 years, and I'd never seen him look unsettled before. After 40 minutes, he looked up. Jesus Christ, Aaron. This is wire fraud, potentially RICO conspiracy given the coordination involved. If you wanted to press charges, you could put all of them in federal prison. I don't want them in prison, I said. I want to protect my assets and get them out of my life. David nodded slowly. That I can do. But you need to understand. The moment you move on this, your marriage is over. Your family relationships are over. There's no coming back from something like this. There's nothing to come back to, I said. It was never real. He spent the next 2 hours outlining my options. Immediate freeze on all joint accounts. Restraining orders preventing access to my properties. Emergency spousal support hearing to prevent Vanessa from claiming she was entitled to my premarital assets. Cease and desist letters to my family. Potential civil suits to recover the fraudulently obtained money. Forensic accountant to document everything. Private investigator to verify their claims and uncover anything else I might have missed. The forensic accountant is key, David said. Margaret Chen. He caught himself. Actually, Margaret's not available. Let me recommend someone else. Thomas Brighton. Best in the state. He'll find every dollar and trace every lie. Thomas Brighton arrived at David's office at 3 p.m., a thin man in his 50s with wire-rimmed glasses and the intensity of someone who genuinely loved spreadsheets. I showed him everything. He made notes in a leather portfolio, occasionally asking questions in a soft voice that made me feel like I was confessing to a priest. These are amateurs, he said finally. They documented everything. Your wife kept records because she's probably planning to use them in a divorce to claim she contributed financially to the marriage. They have no idea these emails are accessible to you. How long will it take to verify? I asked. 3 days for the basic audit, a week for the complete financial picture. But I can tell you right now, based on what I'm seeing in these spreadsheets they helpfully created, you're looking at documented fraud exceeding $400,000 over 6 years. Potentially more if the earlier years weren't tracked as meticulously. $400,000. The number hit like a physical blow. Thomas continued. I'll need access to all your bank accounts, credit cards, investment statements, and property records. I'll also need you to not tip them off. Act completely normal until we have everything documented and frozen. How am I supposed to act normal? I asked. David answered. You're a smart man, Aaron. You've been acting normal while running a company, negotiating deals, managing millions in assets. Pretend this is a business negotiation where you can't show your hand yet. I drove home at 6 p.m. Vanessa was cooking dinner, humming along to music in the kitchen. The house smelled like garlic and wine. Feeling better? She asked. Much better, I lied. Greg sent over those financial reports I asked for. Just boring tax stuff. Oh good, she said, stirring something on the stove. Your mom called again. She sounded stressed. My pulse jumped. About what? She didn't say. Just asked if you could call her tonight. This was it. Whatever crisis they'd planned next. I called my mother after dinner, phone on speaker so Thomas's voice-activated recording app could capture it. My mother answered on the second ring. Aaron, honey, I'm so glad you called. I hate to do this, but I'm in a bit of a bind. Here we go. What's wrong, Mom? I asked. My voice was steady. Years of practice. It's the house, she said. The inspector found some foundation issues. If I don't get them fixed soon, the whole structure could be compromised. I got quotes and the cheapest is $23,000. I don't have that kind of money in savings, and I'm terrified the house will collapse. Foundation issues. I'd paid for foundation repairs 2 years ago, $15,000 that apparently never happened according to the emails. That's scary, Mom. Have you gotten a second opinion? Silence. Brief, but telltale. Well, no. The first inspector was very thorough. I trust his assessment. Which company? I asked. I want to make sure they're reputable before we talk about payment. Another pause. I have the paperwork somewhere. Let me find it and send it to you. Great, I said. Email me everything and I'll have my contractor friend take a look. He owes me a favor. Might be able to save you some money. Oh, that's not necessary. I insist, Mom. Family takes care of family, right? The irony tasted like metal in my mouth. She agreed reluctantly. The email never came. The next morning, I got a text. Contractor came by and said it's not as bad as the first guy thought. Looks like I can handle it myself. Sorry to worry you, honey. Interesting. The crisis evaporated the moment verification was requested. I forwarded the text to Thomas with a note. Add this to the pattern of behavior file. His response came back in 30 seconds. Already did. You're a natural at this. I wasn't sure whether to feel proud or disgusted with myself. The next 3 days were the strangest of my life. I went to the gym, had dinner with Vanessa, watched Netflix on the couch with her head on my shoulder. I called my mother twice, had a normal conversation with Diane about her kids. I texted Nathan about a basketball game. Every interaction was a performance, and I was giving the performance of my life because my entire financial future depended on them not knowing I knew. Vanessa tried to initiate sex on Friday night. I pleaded the stomach bug wasn't fully gone. She was understanding, sympathetic, suggested I see a doctor if it persisted. The concern was so convincing I wanted to scream. Saturday morning, Thomas called. Full report is ready. You need to see this in person. David was already in Thomas's office when I arrived at 2 p.m. The conference room table was covered in printed spreadsheets, bank statements, and annotated timelines. Thomas had created a visual presentation that looked like something from a criminal investigation show. Total documented fraud, $412,600 over 6 years, Thomas began. That's money that went directly from your accounts to theirs under false pretenses, but it's worse than that. He pulled up a slide showing my mother's bank accounts. How he'd gotten access, I didn't ask. Your mother has $237,000 in savings and investments. Her pension is healthy. She has zero debt. Every emergency she's called you about has been fabricated. Next slide, Diane and Russell. Combined household income of $190,000 per year. Own their home outright, paid off with an inheritance from Russell's aunt 3 years ago. The medical bills she claimed insurance didn't cover, didn't exist. The surgery Russell supposedly needed, he's never been hospitalized. Nathan. Makes $68,000 as a sales manager. Drives a new Audi, paid cash, rents a luxury apartment downtown. The business you invested in never existed. He deposited your check and put it straight into an investment account. And Vanessa. This is where it gets complicated, Thomas said. Your wife has a separate bank account you didn't know about. She's been depositing money from your mother and sister, her cut of the extractions. Current balance, $93,000, but there's more. He showed me property records. She purchased a condo in Bellingham 18 months ago. Cash purchase, $215,000. It's in her name only, bought with money that appears to be from the family fraud scheme plus a loan from her parents. I stared at the address. Why would she buy a condo in Bellingham? Retirement property, David said quietly. Or an asset she's hiding for the divorce she's planning. Either way, she used your money to buy property she's kept secret. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table. How did I not know about any of this? Because they're good at hiding it, Thomas said. And because you trusted them. You had no reason to look. Most people don't forensically audit their family's finances. David leaned forward. Aaron, we have everything we need. The question is what you want to do with it. I thought about my father's last words. Take care of your mother and sister. This wasn't what he meant. He meant be there for them, support them emotionally, help them through hard times. He didn't mean become an ATM for their luxury lifestyles while they laughed at my gullibility. He didn't mean let them steal from me while I grieved him. I want them cut off, I said. Completely. I want the money back where possible, and I want legal protection so they can never access my assets again. David nodded. Then here's what we're going to do. The plan was surgical. Monday morning, freeze all joint accounts and credit cards. Vanessa would wake up to find her cards declined, file for legal separation with a request for emergency relief, preventing her from claiming any of my premarital assets. Serve her at home before she left for work. Simultaneously, serve cease and desist letters to my mother, Diane, Russell, and Nathan, informing them that all financial support was permanently terminated and any further contact would be considered harassment. Demand letters for the return of fraudulently obtained funds, with a 72-hour deadline before civil litigation began. File police reports documenting the wire fraud, creating a criminal paper trail, even if I chose not to press charges. Change all passwords, locks, and security codes. Move my primary residence to a property Vanessa didn't know I owned, a cabin in the San Juans I'd bought as an investment 2 years ago. It's going to be brutal, David warned. They're going to retaliate. They'll try to paint you as the villain. They'll tell everyone you abandoned your family. Are you prepared for that? They already think I'm a bank, I said. At least this way I'm a closed one. If this story keeps your interest, please subscribe to get more stories like this. Sunday night, I packed a bag while Vanessa was at yoga. Clothes, documents, laptop, the few things that mattered. I moved everything to the cabin. When Vanessa came home, I was watching TV like nothing had changed. "How was class?" I asked. "So good," she said. "I'm finally getting my headstand." She kissed me and went to shower. I listened to the water run and wondered if she was planning what crisis to manufacture next, or if she was just looking forward to spending more of my money. That night, lying next to her in the dark, I felt nothing. The woman I'd married didn't exist. Maybe she never had. Maybe I'd been in love with a performance from day one. At 5 a.m. Monday, I got up quietly and drove back to the cabin. At 8 a.m., the process server knocked on our door. I wasn't there to see Vanessa's face when she read the separation papers, but I'd hired a security camera company to install new cameras over the weekend, secretly. I watched the footage later. Her confusion, then shock, then rage as she tried her credit cards and they all declined. She called me 11 times. I didn't answer. She called my mother. My mother called me 16 times. Diane called, Nathan called, even Russell called. I blocked all their numbers. By 9 a.m., they'd all been served. By 10 a.m., my phone was exploding with texts from cousins, aunts, uncles, family friends, everyone they'd contacted to tell their version of the story. The messages were variations on a theme. How could you abandon your family? Your father would be ashamed. We always knew money would change you. Your mother is crying, you monster. I sent one mass text to everyone. I've discovered that my family has been defrauding me for 6 years with my wife's participation. I have extensive documentation. If you want the truth, I'm happy to share it. If you'd rather believe their version without evidence, that's your choice. The responses were mixed. Some people asked for evidence. I sent them the forensic report executive summary. Nothing too personal, just enough to show the pattern. Others doubled down. Family doesn't air dirty laundry. You should forgive them. Money isn't everything. One cousin, Leslie, who I'd always been close with, called me directly. "Aaron, what the hell is happening?" I told her everything. Sent her the emails, the videos, the full report. She was silent for a long time. Then, "I'm going to be sick. I knew Vanessa was off, but I thought it was just me being judgmental. Your mother, I can't believe it. What are you going to do?" "I'm done," I said. "I'm protecting what's left and moving on." "Do you need anything?" she asked. "Someone to talk to? A place to stay?" "I'm okay," I said. "But thank you for asking, for believing me." "I love you," Leslie said, "and I'm so sorry they did this to you." That call was the only thing that felt real all day. The rest was a cascade of legal proceedings and blocked numbers and hateful messages from people who'd decided I was the villain without knowing any facts. Vanessa hired a lawyer by noon, some aggressive divorce attorney named Kimberly Stroud, who immediately filed a motion for emergency spousal support and a 50-50 asset split. David had anticipated it. His response brief included the emails, the video, and a request for sanctions against Vanessa for fraud and deception. The hearing was set for the following week. In the meantime, Vanessa started a social media campaign, posted on Instagram about narcissistic abuse and financial controlling behavior. Her friends rallied. My mother went on a community Facebook group and posted about how her ungrateful son had abandoned her in her time of need. Diane gave an interview to some local blogger about family betrayal and greed. They were painting themselves as victims of my sudden cruelty, poor family members victimized by their wealthy relatives' change of heart. What they didn't know, I'd hired a reputation management firm and a publicist. On Thursday, my publicist released a statement with my permission, including the executive summary of Thomas's report, time-stamped emails, and a carefully worded explanation. The statement went to every outlet that had covered Vanessa's story. It included the video of them toasting to me being a gullible cash cow. The video went viral. Within 24 hours, it had 3 million views. The media narrative flipped completely. Vanessa deleted her Instagram. My mother deactivated Facebook. Diane's blogger friend posted an apology and a retraction. The public humiliation was comprehensive and immediate, and I felt nothing watching it happen. Maybe I should have felt vindicated. Mostly, I felt tired. The emergency hearing was devastating for Vanessa's side. Judge Patricia Langford, a no-nonsense woman with 26 years on the bench, read through the evidence with increasingly pursed lips. When Kimberly Stroud tried to argue that Vanessa deserved 50% of marital assets because she'd contributed to the household, Judge Langford cut her off. "Counselor, your client contributed to a conspiracy to defraud her husband. I'm not awarding her anything except a recommendation to find better life choices." The ruling: 0 spousal support. Vanessa kept her personal property and her secret condo, which the judge ordered her to disclose immediately or face contempt charges. She had 30 days to vacate our home. All joint assets were awarded to me, with a finding that Vanessa had forfeited any claim through her fraudulent behavior. "Mr. Shepard," the judge said, looking at me directly, "I'm sorry this happened to you. The court recognizes that you've been the victim of a coordinated fraud scheme. You're entitled to pursue civil remedies to recover your losses." Vanessa didn't look at me once during the hearing. Afterward, in the hallway, she tried. "Aaron, please, can we just talk?" "Through the lawyers," I said, and walked away. It was the last time I saw her in person. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. She got nothing except the condo she'd bought with stolen money. I kept everything else. She moved to Bellingham permanently. I heard through Leslie that she's working as a real estate agent now, telling people she's a survivor of financial abuse. The irony is apparently lost on her. My mother, Diane, and Nathan refused to return any money. I filed civil suits against all three. My mother's lawyer tried to argue that the money was gifts, not loans. David buried them in documentation proving intent to defraud. We settled out of court. My mother paid back $120,000 over 5 years. Diane and Russell paid back $90,000. Nathan paid back $45,000. It wasn't everything, but it was something. The criminal route, I ultimately decided not to press charges. Not because they deserved mercy, but because I didn't want to spend years in courtrooms reliving the betrayal. The civil suits and public exposure were punishment enough. My mother's friends stopped calling her. Diane lost clients when word got around about what she'd done. Nathan got fired from his sales job when his employer found out about the fraud. They destroyed their own reputations more thoroughly than any criminal conviction could have. Russell left Diane 8 months later. Apparently being married to a known fraudster was bad for his finance career. She moved back in with my mother. They live together now in the house I used to pay for. Two bitter women who threw away their integrity for money they didn't need. Nathan moved across the country last I heard. We haven't spoken in 2 years. I don't miss him. I don't miss any of them. That's the strangest part. I thought cutting off my family would feel like amputation, but it felt like finally removing a parasite that had been draining me for years. 6 months after everything imploded, I got a letter from my mother. No return address, forwarded through David's office. I almost threw it away, unopened. Curiosity won. The letter was 3 pages, handwritten. It started with excuses. She'd been scared about money after my father died. She didn't think I'd miss it. She thought I wanted to help. Then it shifted to blame. I'd changed when I got money. I'd become distant. I'd made her feel like she had to beg. Then, finally, in the last paragraph, something that might have been real. I know I destroyed our relationship. I know you'll probably never forgive me. I don't blame you. I just want you to know that I lie awake every night, wishing I could go back and make different choices. The money didn't make me happy. It made me greedy, and I lost my son because of it. I'm sorry. I read it twice. Then I filed it in a folder labeled Estate Planning Excluded Beneficiaries and never responded. Some things can't be fixed with apologies. Some trust, once shattered, can't be rebuilt. She'd made her choices knowing exactly what she was doing. The video proved that. The emails proved that. Years of calculated deception proved that. She wasn't sorry she'd done it. She was sorry she'd been caught. I'm 39 years old now. I've been no contact with my mother, Diane, and Nathan for 3 years. I've rebuilt my life around people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide. I volunteer at a financial literacy nonprofit, teaching people about protecting their assets and recognizing financial abuse. I've started dating again, slowly, carefully, with the kind of caution that comes from being burned badly. I sold the house I shared with Vanessa and bought a smaller place near the water. The cabin in the San Juans is still my refuge. I go there when I need silence and perspective. I've learned things I wish I hadn't needed to learn, that family can be the cruelest abusers because they know exactly which wounds to press, that love and manipulation can look identical until you know what you're looking for, that generosity without boundaries is just an invitation to be exploited. My father's last words haunt me less now. I did take care of my mother and sister. For 16 years, I took care of them financially, emotionally, practically. They responded by viewing me as a resource instead of a person. That's not my failure. That's theirs. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never seen those emails. Would they have kept going until I had nothing left? Would Vanessa have eventually divorced me and tried to take half of everything, armed with her fake financial contributions? Would I have died still believing they loved me, never knowing I was just a wallet they occasionally attached emotions to? The thought makes me sick. I got out. That's what matters. I protected my assets. I protected my future. I cut out the cancer before it could spread further. Leslie asked me once if I regret cutting them all off so completely. Don't you miss having a family? She said. I have a family, I told her. I have you. I have friends who've proven they value me. I have a community I've built based on actual mutual respect. What I cut off wasn't family. It was a fraud ring that happened to share my DNA. She hugged me and didn't push further. The thing about betrayal at this level is that it recalibrates everything. I don't trust easily anymore. I verify things that normal people would take on faith. I have a forensic accountant review my finances quarterly now, not because I expect fraud, but because I never want to be blindsided again. I keep my financial information private, even from people I'm dating. I probably overthink things, but I'm also never going back to being that naive, trusting version of myself who believed that family loyalty was unconditional and that love couldn't be faked for money. That version of me got robbed of $400,000 and 6 years of authentic relationships. This version of me has boundaries, standards, and a clear understanding of his own worth. 3 years out, the anger has faded into something quieter. Acceptance. They showed me who they really were, and I believed them. I acted accordingly. They're living with the consequences of their choices. I'm living with mine. And honestly, I'm doing better than I ever did when I was their ATM. I sleep well now. I don't wake up with anxiety about the next crisis call. I don't feel guilty about having money or success. I earned it, and I get to decide what to do with it. No one gets access to my resources without earning it through genuine relationship and proven trustworthiness. No one gets to guilt me into anything. No one gets to manipulate me into confusing financial support with love. The biggest gift they gave me, inadvertently, was freedom. Freedom from obligation to people who never valued me. Freedom from the weight of their manufactured crises. Freedom from relationships built on lies and extraction. I'm lighter now. Smaller circle, but infinitely more genuine. Some days I still get sad about what I lost. Not the money, but the version of my family I thought I had. The mother who I believed loved me. The sister who I thought I was close to. The brother I'd mentored and believed in. The wife I'd planned a future with. But then I remember. Those people never existed. I was in love with performances, with masks, with elaborate fictions designed to keep me compliant and generous. The real people underneath were strangers who viewed me as a resource. And you can't mourn what was never real. Last month, I got married. Small ceremony, just close friends. My wife, her name is Olivia, knows everything. I showed her the emails, the reports, the whole ugly story on our third date because I needed to know if she could handle it. She read through everything, looked up at me and said, "That's the most horrible thing I've ever read. I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I'm glad you got out." Then she asked if I wanted to talk about it or if I needed space. She didn't try to fix it, didn't offer unsolicited advice, didn't suggest I should forgive them for my own peace. She just met me where I was and let me process at my own pace. That's how I knew she was different. Olivia works as a marine biologist, makes a comfortable living on her own, has zero interest in my money beyond normal partnership conversations about shared expenses. She paid for half of our honeymoon. She insists on splitting major purchases. When I tried to buy her an expensive birthday present last year, she said she'd rather have something thoughtful than something costly. She's the opposite of Vanessa in every way that matters. We have a prenup. She suggested it before I could. "You've been burned," she said. "I want you to feel safe." We also have a foundation now, the Aaron Shepard Family Fraud Prevention Foundation. We fund financial literacy programs, provide grants to people escaping financially abusive relationships, and train therapists and lawyers to recognize the signs. It's my way of turning the worst thing that ever happened to me into something that might help others. Every person we help feels like a small redemption. Sometimes people ask if I've heard from my family recently. The answer is no, and I prefer it that way. My mother tried reaching out through Leslie 2 years ago, asking if we could meet for coffee. I declined. Diane sent a Christmas card last year with a note saying she'd grown and changed. I threw it away. Nathan's girlfriend contacted me on LinkedIn 6 months ago saying he wanted to apologize. I blocked her. They don't get closure from me. They don't get forgiveness or reconciliation or a heartwarming reunion where we all cry and move forward. They made calculated choices for years. They celebrated defrauding me. They called me a bank that prints money and a gullible cash cow. Those aren't the words of people who see me as human. Those are the words of con artists discussing their mark. And I'm done being anyone's mark. My father would understand, I think. He taught me to take care of family, but he also taught me to have self-respect. He taught me that being a good person doesn't mean letting others take advantage of you. If he were alive, I'd like to think he'd be proud that I stood up for myself, that I refused to be a victim, that I protected what he worked so hard to provide for us. Or maybe he'd be disappointed that I cut off my mother and sister. I'll never know. But I do know this. I kept my promise. I took care of my family for 16 years, and when they proved they were taking advantage of that care, I took care of myself instead. That's not abandonment. That's survival. If you're reading this and something resonates, if you've got family members who always have emergencies, who make you feel guilty for having boundaries, who seem to view your success as their entitlement, I want you to know, you're not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You're not a bad person for protecting your assets. You're not selfish for wanting relationships based on love rather than transactions. And if you discover that the people you trusted most have been betraying you, document everything. Get professionals involved. Protect yourself legally and financially. Don't let guilt keep you trapped in a situation that's destroying you. I wasted 6 years and over $400,000 learning that lesson. You don't have to. The people who truly love you will prove it through their actions, not their crises. The people who value you will respect your boundaries, not test them constantly. And the people who see you as a person rather than a resource won't need to be cut off, because they'll never give you a reason to. 3 years later, I'm finally building the life I should have had all along. It's quieter, smaller, but it's real, and that makes all the difference. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.